It is an understatement to say that Vi and Jinx are popular. In fact, take a look at these Instagram posts. Jinx's picture has 418,000 likes, 1,127 comments, and 45,000 shares. Now, take a look at this Vi picture. It has 629,000 likes, 1,948 comments, and 62,800 shares. And still, I am not done yet. Take a look at this picture of them together. They have 1.3 million likes, 9,915 comments, and 345,000 shares. Influencers would do almost anything to get this kind of clout. Why is that? I mean, one girl is a gangster filled with PTSD and trauma, while the other is an ex-convict with her own set of trauma. So, despite all this, why do Vi and Jinx have so many fans? I think this is perfectly summed up by one of the Arcane writers, Amanda Overton. She says, I think this comes from relatable motivations. Jinx, and Powder before her, was always desperate to prove herself worthy. Worthy of her sister's faith in her, worthy of Silco's faith in her. We shouldn't have to prove ourselves worthy of love, but that is a struggle we all face in so many different ways. A character making terrible decisions is much more forgivable if you too have felt what they're feeling. I always say I love characters that do the right thing for the wrong reasons, or the wrong thing for the right reasons. Everything else is boring. To prove this, let's take a look at Vi. Jinx's motivations always revolved around her sister. And you know what? Vi wasn't any different. Of course, the one who mattered the most to her was Powder. She always took care of Powder from the very first frame they were shown. From the moment they lost their parents, she took up the cudgels of raising her to become prepared for the hardships of life. She sheltered her when others were berating her and encouraged her when she needed it. When it came to Vi, it always came down to her looking after Powder. She went on the heist to make some extra money for the both of them and their foster family. We'll touch on this again, but she wanted to stop the enforcers coming after them because Powder was almost caught. So in all of Act 1, we were feeling her protective nature for Powder, and that informed us of why she did things the way that she did. That's also how they pushed the story. She did the heist partly for Powder, she was pushing to fight back against Piltover in response to Powder almost getting caught, and she left Powder in the last drop to keep her from getting hurt in their rescue attempt. This, of course, went on for the rest of the series. Vi, even after 5 to 7 years of separation, was still looking for Powder. For Act 2 and 3, this pushes the story in how her presence affected the Jinx and Silco dynamic. Vander had a different dynamic to Powder in that Vi viewed him as a dad and mentor. Powder may have been the most important person to Vi, but for Vander, it was his kids. He placed another layer of expectations on Vi, mainly because he saw a reflection of himself in her. Every meaningful moment we had with Vi and Vander was him dropping nuggets of wisdom for her to grow into the person he knew she could be. He talked her down after the heist, he talked some sense into her after she demanded to fight back against Piltover, and he gave her words to live by when he took her place to get arrested. That was how their relationship pushed the story forward. Whenever Vi responded to Vander's teachings, another impossible choice came up. For Echo, Milo, and Clagor, they could all be bunched up to represent her brother figures. They were supporting characters in the story of Vi, Vander, and Powder, and all in all, their presence mainly served to showcase the personalities of the main players of the arc. They pushed the story in a way that magnified the emotional tension of each scene. When Milo was putting Powder down, it magnified how protective Vi was. When something bad happened to the characters related to Vi, Echo and Clagor served as characters that emphasized that. Even at the very end of the first act, their fates ramped up the tension between Vi and Powder, pushing the story forward. Perhaps the most significant influence on Vi after Powder or Jinx after Act 2 was Caitlyn. You see, Caitlyn was everything that they grew up to hate. She was rich, she was an enforcer, and she was from Piltover. However, unlike what they were conditioned to hate, she proved herself the opposite. She freed Vi from prison when enforcers were known to put them inside. She saved Vi from a stab wound when enforcers were known to be the ones giving them. She even gave Vi a voice on the council when, again, enforcers were known to silence them. This was how they pushed the story forward. Their literal relationship was the relationship between the Undercity and Piltover moving forward. Have you noticed that when it comes to Vi, all her interactions are about her and the other person only? Or if it's not, it's her mediating between people. I mentioned in a previous video that Vi embodied interpersonal conflict. What that means is that she represented connections between people. Notice this, even the people around her acted in a way that supported that when the story was from her perspective. But now, what about about Jinx. It's clearly not the same kind of dynamic with her, right? So now, just like Vi, let's take a look at the people around her. Like her big sister, the most important person to her is Vi. She did everything for Vi. She wanted to prove herself to her, so she went with them to the heist. She stole the hex gems for Vi, and she went to the cannery despite Vi telling her no so that she could prove that she could help. Again, she did get the nickname Jinx for a reason. Everything she went out to do, she messed up. Every time she failed, Vi picked her up and told her to embrace her strengths instead. Vi was the only one who really believed in her at this point, so she wanted to prove her right. The difference here though is that what moved her along was how she reacted to her insecurities. She was motivated by it and she was driven by it. That's basically how they pushed the story between them. As a father figure, Vander did not make that much of a mark. She cared for him, but not like Vi. Her real father figure was Silco. Once she thought Vi died, her fixation on wanting to prove herself to a person she admired transferred to Silco. Now, Vi's dynamic with Vander was different from Silco's dynamic with Jinx. Again, Jinx was motivated by her emotions and mental well-being. To manage this, Silco would be very dynamic in his use of care and manipulation. To be clear, he did care a lot for Jinx. That's why he told Jinx to take rests after her mental breakdowns. And he even tried to symbolize a rebirth for her like what happened to him. He even risked Jinx's life with the shimmer injections because he trusted that Jinx was strong enough for it. However, that last case was a direct result of his manipulation of Jinx when he sent her to the bridge. Again, to be clear, he did care for Jinx. However, he is manipulative by nature. That's why his relationship with Jinx became twisted. That's how the dynamics of their relationship pushed the story. The erratic shifts between them aggravated the already chaotic mind of Jinx. For her foster family, which were Vander, Claggor, and Milo, they too served to amplify the emotional tension. Again, they weren't as close as Vi was to them, but she did care for them as a family. And we can see that because the thing that ultimately breaks both Vi and Powder was the death of their foster family. Now, for Sevika, Jinx didn't really have any strong feelings for her unless it was hate. In fact, she served as a foil for Vi. Where Vi would act as a calming influence to her, Sevika would be the opposite. We see this so many times in the series, like when the smuggling mission goes wrong or the time that they found out that Vi was still alive, not to mention the many times that she asked Silco to take Jinx out of the missions. Their dynamics added tension and chaos into Jinx's mind, further prodding her to do things that caused a lot more of the same kind of chaos. Perhaps the biggest impact on Jinx's mental state was Caitlyn. Like I said, Caitlyn was what they were taught to hate, and that never changed for her unlike it did for Vi. You see, Vi was at the receiving end of Caitlyn's kindness. Jinx was not. In fact, Caitlyn was also after her because of what she did to Piltover. Their dynamic mainly revolved around cognitive dissonance. I mean, here was Vi, the culmination of a good person in her mind, hanging out and making out with this enforcer, the very thing that destroyed their lives. Notice again, Caitlyn is affecting Jinx through her mental state. Every time Jinx and Vi are about to reconcile, it was Caitlyn that caused the rift. It wasn't because she wanted to, but it was now the conflict between them. It just lined up that way. That's the impossible choice set up for Vi and Jinx. Caitlyn. Between Vi and Jinx in the second act, it was Caitlyn who moved their story. Jinx was the complete opposite of Vi in that all her relationships informed her mental state. It was all internal for Jinx, while it was external for Vi. Her insecurities, her fear, and her trauma were the main motivators for her. All of this is what you would call an intrapersonal conflict. Now, you might see both Vi and Jinx as completely different. However, the truth is, they're two sides of the same coin. To a certain degree, everybody can resonate with their troubles. That's because we all go through interpersonal and intrapersonal conflicts ourselves. So, TLDR, they go through the same stuff that we do. Anyway, I talk more about this in depth here in this video right here. Hope to see you there. Peace and have a great day.